All right, welcome to CROM Update Podcast number 63. And today I am joined by Stephen Sonneveld. Stephen, how are you?
I'm good, Kurt. I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Alicia? Yes. This is the second time we've had Stephen on. And this is a special episode. Going to earmark it as something that I've been working on and Stephen has made a grand contribution to, which is the free comic book scripts that we are offering through CromTheBarbarian.com. And we've got 12 from Stephen, my 3 make 15. And there are a couple of more coming from some other writers that are a part of the community. But I reached out to Stephen to see if he could jump on with me so we could make sort of a why they're here, these free comic book scripts, what you're supposed to do, and more importantly, how it affects not only the community and building from there, but also individuals who are out there, wanting to get involved in the game of making comic books. And just there, I have to say, I made a remark before we jumped on. That's one of Stephen's newest sketches of his Crom. Love the blue line and the ink. The skirt, is that like a black marker?
Yeah, that's a gray tone marker.
Nice. Looks very, very nice. But
Thank you.
so with that being said, let's jump in and try to do some explaining here. The biggest thing is last year I released my Crom Collected. It's 140 pages, black and white sword and sorcery goodness. 4 stories up front are mine. Then there's 4 stories by the creators, Gardner Fox and John Guinta, and some Jack Katz. And then there's a prose illustrated by me, which is based on a 1952 Sword and Planet story by Gardner Fox that I converted into a sword and sorcery yarn that features our hero, Crom the Barbarian. And of course, back here, all the way in the back, I have a call for collaborations. So one of the ideas that had come out months after this release and the reception of that was, a lot of us out there can't or don't want to draw or do every aspect of making a comic. Yes, there are individuals out there who would love to just do everything start to finish and be very successful at it. But even myself, there's a couple of areas that give me an extreme amount of anxiety, if you will, as specifically writing. So I figured it'd be kind of interesting to get some scripts out there, from others in contribution to the community, and then work off of them. So with that being said, Stephen, what is it that had you sit down and put together 12 Crom the Barbarian scripts that total like what, 139 pages of adventure?
Right. I was inspired. I had uh, come across CromTheBarbarian.com and I reached out to you and you were receptive. So I wrote the first story, The Water Waif, and you were receptive to that. And then I it was just one of those things where I just kept getting ideas for these characters, and it ended up being kind of a loose continuity. It's not really, but uh, there are 1 or 2 callbacks to different between the 12 scripts. Um, but it just kept growing, and the character sort of developed his own identity, and I got comfortable with what I wanted it to be. I think I mentioned in our last interview that it was almost like a Western, in the sense that he comes to
Yeah.
town, he solves something, and then
Yeah.
he leaves again. Um, so though,
Right.
um, and it just kept going. Finished 11, and I thought, oh, I want to round it out. So I had another idea that I developed into, and then I ended up sort of reformatting the first one. It's just because I made him this. By the time I finished with the character, I had to relook at the first one to decide, is that still the same character, and would he still, the contrivance of the plot, how does he get into this situation? As opposed to someone just knocking him on the head. There's got to be a better way for him to land in the to land into the contrivance of the plot, to land into trouble. But
Right.
I was just inspired, so, and it just came out, and then I got to 12, and that was about it, because it felt like an ending, and it just felt like a good time to stop.
Yeah, the one thing I have to say about your Crom stories are they they really breathe. There's not a lot of like fighting action, sort of at the core of it. They're more. I categorized them on Crom the Barbarian as Crom myths. And I know you would respond positive to that, where there's a story of a hero that goes into some situation and comes out the other end, and there are people who witness it, and then around the campfire, when Crom came through a couple years ago, he had this this awful run in with a giant, and so and this happened, and so
Yeah,
and so and so and this happened, and as years go on, the stories become more mythologized, and
yeah.
they can get far fetched. And one of the things I do want to say to anybody who would like to get involved is I also find these to be perfect entry points, and and some freedom that is inside there. Were you thinking along those lines of really looking to collaborate with others, Stephen, while you were writing these?
Um, Not initially, because I think I was more just trying to see it on the page, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Um, and once I once I could see it on the page and I was able to write it, then it wasn't until you mentioned that we should share them that I thought, and I was hesitant to it at first for various reasons, but no, I really
Mm-hmm.
love that idea of having other people interpret it and bringing their own sensibility to
Yes.
it. Because if I write a 9 panel page, someone else may say this is a 6 panel page, or they may say um, they may move those 3 panels somewhere else. So I'd be interested to see what other people bring to it. So
Is there one of the 12 that particularly stand out for you that you'd like to kind of go through? with a little bit of explanation.
I'm sorry, I was distracted for a moment. Just back to the previous
Any of
question.
these are, I don't want to say your favorite.
Yeah, I do love them all. They're all my babies, right? I mean, they're the communities now, but
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, they belong to the community now. But uh, they all kind of take place sort of in the Levant, I guess, because I was trying to figure out like what time in history is this, and I sort of settled on Mesopotamia, like this Northman, this foreigner comes to this other land. But then I wrote one called The Chase
Mm-hmm.
that was based on a piece of Aztec history, so I just sort of set it in an Aztec jungle because I didn't want to be disrespectful to this terrible true incident that happened among the Aztecs. That's also the longest story, and the reason for that is you. I was trying to draw out the chase, I guess. Like if you just show people running through the forest, then you don't really get the sense of it. But if you do like Sergio Leone close-ups and they're waiting and then they're running and then there's an obstacle and then there's people listening and deciding to run and making those choices. Like you said, giving it time to breathe a little bit. Um, but I do like the chase. And you mentioned in your summary of it that it was based on a true bit of Aztec history where they tried to make peace between these tribes. So the one chieftain married his daughter to the other one, to the other chieftain, and then went to never heard from her. So he went to visit her, and the rival chieftain comes out wearing his daughter's skin. So that was
Yeah.
an actual event that happened, and I thought, I mean, of course, as a writer, you think, wow, I should use that. Uh, but just out of respect for those people and
Yeah.
those lives, I thought, well, we should set this one at least in some adjunct Aztec jungle.
Yeah, because one of the things you can we can see already is that you're the pretty much a lot of the sequential description panel to panel within a page is kind of one liners. There's a good decent lead at the beginning, and obviously as pages are moving along from the the explanation, if you will, the setup. That's where I started feeling like when I was writing, my own brain started injecting the details, those finer details, like you were saying with Sergio Leone,
Yeah,
where the eyes, the close up on the eyes, and them shifting from right
right,
to left. The breaking of branches. You take a deep breath and a snake falls on top of your head. These kinds of
right.
fun things that can be injected from the let's say the layout penciling artist going forward. So I can't thank you enough for all that you put into them, but to offer these, to others to get, their pencils and pens wet, and on the paper is just an extraordinary thing. Um, is there anything? Now, have you ever collaborated with anybody on a comic book, Stephen?
No, no, I haven't.
Yeah, it is quite a. Uh, Go ahead.
What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just it can be a bit daunting to work with somebody else, but the magic is in really compromising in a sense of you know who has something a little more stronger than the other and allow that to get pushed forward and also the other pull the weight on that so
Hmm.
that's something I actually enjoy working with others so I do
Yeah.
a little comic book I do a little comic book with a friend of mine, Jake Jacobs, over at Turbo Pit Fighter Comics on YouTube, where every Sunday we get together and Jake is doing the writing and the penciling. I'm helping with some of the dialogue and sequencing there. But then once those pencils are completed, I'm putting the inking together, and then we come back together to do the lettering and the packaging and so
Hmm.
on and so forth because
Yeah.
it keeps me primarily out of my head and in isolation,
Yeah.
which I think it can be a struggle for people out there.
Right. And making comics is very tough. I mean, you really have to love
Yes,
comics
yes,
to develop one. And like you mentioned in your introduction, you may not want to write. You may just want to draw. So it's nice to have something for you
yep,
that doesn't tell you uh, this line of fabric needs to be dot dot dot. You know, that's something that can just give you a base to
right.
jump off on. Um, Ideally, in an ideal situation, I know Alan Moore, he wrote for his artist. So if Eddie Campbell
Yes,
or
Spe-
David
very
Lloyd was
specific.
drawing Watchmen, yeah, it'd be a much different book. So, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
at least people now, they have a chance to maybe to draw a story that they wouldn't draw. And we say Crom the Barbarian, and we have one thing in our heads, and maybe they make it steampunk. You know, maybe they do it anime style.
It's interesting. Yeah, yep, yep.
So,
Yes, we have a lot of contributors. We have a lot of contributors right now to CROM Anthology #1, which is very much in the works. And one of those stories could end up being placed in Anthology #1 with that anime feel. So very, very, very excited about that. Um, is there anything else that you would like to bring to light with any of your scripts, Stephen?
well, I hope people enjoy them and make them their own. As I mentioned I did sort of a suggestion thing on the first page, and when you hear the word barbarian, you think of Conan, you think of Thundar, and maybe He-Man. So I'd be really interested to see what your design would be as a creator. Like,
Yes,
what are
me
you
as
going to
well.
come
Me
up with
as well.
that? Yeah, and even if you look at the original public domain works and you're confident with that design, then go with it. You know, there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that either because it exists. That's how they envisioned it when they made it. So, but I
Yeah.
wanted to do a
The
design
one of
more
the
of
prime.
my own.
Yep. Go ahead.
That was it. I just I wanted to do something, I guess, just more true to me, you know, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I think all of us in the creative spirit want that as the part of the contribution, and also want to be
Yeah.
respectful to others' materials. And I do get
Hmm.
curious. We When I first posted the three scripts that I put together, um, I got about a dozen downloads. Haven't seen anything yet, so I can imagine, and this is one of the reasons we're doing this video. And of course, if you come across the video and you have questions, please immediately put them in the comments, or you can reach me at kurt@cromthebarbarian.com, and would be happy to give more details. But putting together Crom Collected, and after it was all completed and said and done, and out there in the wild, it dawned on me that this was a great player's handbook, if you will, for getting one initiated into the world of Crom. It doesn't mean that you should be shackled to said presentations, because there's three different presentations here. These are the
Right.
original 1950s Crom, drawn by John Guinta, written by Gardner Francis Fox. And I still pour over them myself, and really take the transmission of inspiration from them, and then move into my own, as you can see, with
Hmm.
my version. But it's also what is really exciting about working with a public domain character. um, you can own what it is you do with that character, but you don't own the character when it's in the public domain. And that's very exciting to me, because going back to the idea of people's interpretations and allowing that freedom there is a part of what I'm pushing for in the community, and getting these CROM anthologies collected with other versions and materials from people, and out there, so others can become inspired, and then create your own from wherever you feel comfortable with writing,
Right.
grabbing somebody else's script and doing the pencils and layouts. Maybe the pencils and layouts are out there, and you would like to do some inking of a version. It's very much about the play, and not about some strict, conformed commercial destination and process, that the community is promoting.
Well, even if you look at the cover of your book there with that sword design that you did
Yes.
with the skull sword, and I looked at that and I
Mm-hmm.
thought,
Yep.
well, do I use that, or is that Kurt's vision? So what's my vision? And like you said, it was in
Or
the spirit
version,
of
or version.
right. It was in the spirit of communal creativity. Kurt brings this to the table. What can I bring to the
Mm-hmm.
table?
Absolutely. The sword you'll notice here, Jason Schoonover's pinup from the Crom Collective, which was a one of the limited edition Virgin covers that were used. You can see he really went out. It's almost like a like spider
Yeah,
thorns or tusks, moving off there, and then even another layer of skull, attribute there. So I love seeing that. I've
yeah.
seen it. I've seen it elsewhere, in other people's designs, and love it, and really encourage others to be inspired and do something. So,
And
one of
that's
the
really the
things I
key
want to
word,
jump
isn't it?
into, and what's that?
Inspire. That's really the key word there.
Yes, yes,
It's not a
yes.
competition. It's
Yeah.
not
If there
a
was any, yes,
yep.
The if there was one if I would use one word to explain the CROM Anthology and the community that we're building at cromthebarbarian.com, is that inspiration. It's
Hmm.
allowing people to take the next step in being inspired with something. Hence, the people that I think would be very interested in taking on one of the 15 free scripts over there would be not only beginners, people that have always wanted to dabble, and hopefully want to get some feedback, but our sword and sorcery fans. The reason I got into Crom the Barbarian, found Crom the Barbarian, was I'm a huge Conan freak. I love Savage Sword of Conan. It's really my favorite comic book, number one on the list. Grew up off of it, and it still carries weight with me, in always wanting to take and leap the inspiration off those pages and onto my own pages. So yeah, it's a clean slate, Crom the Barbarian, and
Hmm.
if you are a
Right.
beginner, if you're somebody if you're practicing and you want to sharpen your skills, you're a sword and sorcery fan, you want to work with other collaborators, and most importantly, something gets completed, it gets published in the CROM Anthology. So there's a lot here for one to reap rewards, if you will.
Right. Right. And just to get published, and just to, when you go to the conventions and you can show people your work of what it
Yep.
looks like on the comic page.
Yep. And one of the things I'm just going to bring real quickly into light is that, in all of the downloads, the PDF downloads, there are some guidelines, but the guidelines are just reminders of being courteous and communicating, and forthright in your approach and how things go and stuff. So, the purpose of the free scripts, is to provide a guide, comic book artists, at any level and any experience, to foster the potential of collaborations with me or other members of the community. But there's no monetary gain in working in the CROM Anthology and the community, but there is a ton of other things that come along in benefit of being a part of it. And Steve's reaching is getting a little bit of that benefit right now in being on a podcast on YouTube. His name in the title, and people getting views, and then following him on separate platforms that he's on, or just becoming a big fan of him and his work, on the CROM project. So it's very much, we're very open here. Not trying to make any sleight of hand moves here. The most important
Right.
thing is, you'll notice that there's a copyright symbol before Stephen's name. He still owns the rights to the script. So the story itself, when it gets penciled by one person and then inked by another and then published in one publication, those all have respectful ownership, if you will, but not copyright control. It's just ownership of that. And one of the things that I keep putting out there is, I would love to see one thing get completed and printed in multiple publications, and we all be aware of it, and sort of share in all of that. I do not follow the thinking or belief system that, since I made my comic book, everybody out there who likes comics will come and buy it's fooling yourself to a detriment. What it is that you need to bring your work to a community, to a group of people. The community in the cromthebarbarian.com is growing. And if you're into sword and sorcery, indie comics, and really want to sharpen your skills, this is going to be a perfect place for you.
Definitely. And I hope more people
So I'm
see that and join.
Me as well. So to close this up to right now is to just get people to understand that you go over to cromthebarbarian.com. You can see the link down below in the view on YouTube, or you can just get in the description or Google Crom the Barbarian, and that's going to be, I believe, the first thing that will come up in their search. There's a page called Free Comic Book Scripts. It's a shopping cart. They're PDFs. You just put them in the shopping cart. There's no charge. There is the opportunity to be on the mailing list through that download, air quotes, purchase. But like I said, there's actually absolutely zero money. No payment is needed to be presented there. But you'll get a PDF, and then from there, what I feel would be the obvious thing is somebody would put together some roughs, some just brief ideas, some scribbles on paper. And if you scan them and send them to me, Kurt at cromthebarbarian.com, then the excitement begins. Then I'm going to send them over to Stephen, and the three of us will get together and we'll really chomp over, what's been presented, the ideas, bounce things around, and then put it in the next step. So please don't feel overwhelmed in the place of like what your skill level's at. The responsibilities beyond just moving pencil on paper, but for the record, for anybody to get published in CROM Anthology, you do need to be on a CROM Update, the podcast. It's very important for the signal to go out and gain more attention for Crom the Barbarian, but more importantly, you as a creator. So, as I said, this is Stephen's second time, not the last for sure. I do have creators that have gone nine episodes so far in over a year and a half. Those individuals will be coming back on more and more. But there's 13 people right now that are a part of CROM Anthology that are actively working on material for CROM Anthology 2. So that's where this would end up being placed. When would CROM Anthology 2 come out? Won't know until CROM Anthology 1 comes out. So with that being said, I just want to leave it at this. If you're a sword and sorcery fan, you're a hobbyist, beginner, want to sharpen your pencil, jump on board with us, please go right ahead over to cromthebarbarian.com and grab one of these. Not only are there the 12 from Stephen, but like I said, I have put 3 of my own together, and it's all in good fun. I hate to say taking this far too serious is definitely not appropriate. This is all about fun, and really getting things pushed out there, and working together. So that's what I have to say. I can't wait to see what comes around the corner from you out there. And like I said, my email is always open for receiving questions and going from there. But Stephen, do you have anything for these good people before we let them go back to reading comics, making them if they choose?
I'm glad you said don't worry about your skill level, because that's a very important point, and that's a kind of a stumbling block for people where they think, well, my work isn't going to be good enough, or I look at some of the other podcasts that you've done, and people have done great work, and I'm not going to be able to live up to that. And I just think that there's so many unique artists out there that you just have to be yourself. And you just have to draw how you draw,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you have to write how you write. And I don't want to see a carbon copy of someone else. I want to see you. I want to see your work. And and your vision. And there's no wrong way. There's no wrong interpretation of that. So just trust yourself and be yourself, and
Hallelujah.
yeah, and
Everyone
create.
starts at zero. There's no jumping to the top of a mountain. And if you're playing the game in your mind, that you're going to wait for yourself to be good enough, it's a long wait. And inevitably, it is probably what keeps most people outside of the actual activity of creative arts. This I cannot express more. This is episode 63. You can go back to each and every one of these episodes. This is a safe place. I will stand by that as a statement. This is a safe place for creatives to come and grow. And most importantly, one of my number one quote is, this is a low to no stress project. So please join us. If you're sitting on the edge of your seat saying, wow, this sounds like something I'd like to get in part of, go ahead. Please reach out. But Stephen, I cannot thank you enough for reaching out to me in the first place, to introduce yourself and all the wonderful work that you have done and that you are doing and you're going to be doing. But most specifically, allowing these 12 scripts of yours to be a part of the free comic book script giveaway on cromthebarbarian.com. So thank you so very much.
Well, thank you. I was inspired, and I hope other people are inspired to create their work as well. I look forward to seeing it all.
No, me as well. And I look forward to getting together with you again very, very soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. You too.